Welcome to Body Bags, presented by the Kokomo Lantern. I'm Jeremy Geiger. I'm one of the co-owners of City of First Cremation and Funeral Services. Today I want to kind of talk about some questions that I've received. Pricing. What's pricing mean to the consumer on a funeral? Pricing is all over the place, to be honest with you. It's interesting to kind of look at and to answer some of the questions that I've had. It's been really difficult. And the reason why I'm bringing up pricing is because it's different for everyone. It's not like a Target or a Meijer or a Walmart. Most of the funeral homes in the United States are owned privately by a family or a group of individuals, not necessarily corporate owned. There are a lot of corporate owned funeral home cemeteries or combo cemetery funeral home deals. But I want to talk more about the privately owned, local owned funeral homes and trying to compare some of the differences to them and similarities. We're all going to provide a beautiful, meaningful funeral service. We're all able to perform embalmings and cremations. But the ways that we're able to do the ceremonies or include you in on these processes is greatly different across the board. For instance, on the embalming side, most funeral homes are going to do the work themselves and they're going to take pride into it. Some of the funeral homes, they either are so shortly staffed that they don't have the extra time to do the embalmings, or they're such a large firm and they're doing so many embalmings that it's easier to just have a trade embalmer come and do the work. So they're not an employee of the funeral home. They come in as a outsider and they conduct the embalming process for them at a fee. So with them maybe doing things in-house and them personally doing the embalmings, they're going to have more control of maybe the cost of chemicals that they're using. They're going to be more in touch to what the family is expecting as well. They're going to have a good idea of timing of how long they're going to keep that deceased. And then when we talk about the caskets for the embalmed body, the caskets vary all over the place because we have a bunch of different manufacturers. We've got pretty affordable economic manufacturers that are specializing on 20 gauge non-sealed caskets. Then we have other high-end manufacturers that are doing solid bronze, solid copper caskets. Some of them are even getting into the woods where they're able to do mahoganies, cherries, and stuff like that. Most of the metals are done in the Midwest. A lot of your woods are done south. But your caskets really are the same. They all look the same. They have pretty similar themes. Do I feel that maybe one casket manufacturer is more affordable than the other? Absolutely. But it's kind of tough to go into the funeral home and say, hey, I want a Thacker casket and not a Batesville casket. Your funeral director is going to kind of, how do you know about Thacker caskets? So it might be a question to ask the funeral home when you're there making arrangements. Who's your casket supplier? Are there other suppliers that you work with if you're trying to be maybe more budget conscious of things? So that might be something to keep in mind when you're looking at pricing. Their facilities. Here at City of First Cremation, we don't have areas for a large public gathering. We do things more privately for our families, but our competitors and most funeral homes, they have a large area where people can gather for that funeral service or visitation. So their overhead costs are going to be a little more than maybe somebody that's set streamlined like we are, that we chose not to invest our money into a great big building. If we're going to do services like that, we choose to go to a church. That's more cost savings to us. It's more cost savings to the family. But then there are those that they're okay with paying that extra price to keep it all at the funeral home. It's convenient for them to be there, one location, easy parking, maybe the flow of the building's really nice. Sometimes it's just tradition. You know, grandma was in this funeral home and she was in her casket up there where we're seeing dad today. On the side of cremation for funeral homes, when you're comparing prices, a lot of it's going to be, does the funeral home own their own crematory? I feel if they own their own equipment, they have more maybe wiggle room with a family to lower that cremation price versus them taking it to another vendor to take care of that cremation. There's a variety of places that do the cremation. Typically, might surprise you, but the vault company is usually a lot of the places that have crematories and will solicit for funeral homes to bring their bodies to them if they don't have a crematory of their own to perform their cremations. The cost that I really see on that is pretty minimal. It's already factored into our basic cremation, the crematory fee. The only thing that you may have to try to work out would be the transporting them from your funeral home up to the crematory, whether it's you or the crematory comes and gets that deceased. On the merchandise, such as like miniature urns or actual urns, register books, memorial folders, a lot of that's going to depend on the vendors that they come from. There are some pretty affordable companies out there that offer, I feel, register books that are of good quality. I wouldn't say any registers of great quality book, but that's my opinion. I'm not a fan of a register book. I don't know what you're going to do with it after the funeral's over. You're going to remember the important people that were there, and you don't necessarily need to see their signature to verify that they were truly there. But like the jewelry, I see the jewelry come from a variety of vendors. I see it as pretty affordable to really, really expensive. And I've ordered both sides of them. They're pretty similar to me. I don't know much difference on the two of them. And if we're talking a couple $100 in difference, I'm probably going to go for the cheaper one when they look identical to myself. So the merchandise that would be available would depend on their supplier, on where their price points would vary from location to location. The grandness of their facility, how big their facility is another thing that may come into factor of where their price point is. The number of staff members that they have. I mean, I mentioned overhead, and I'm just trying to break it down, but the staff that they have here at City of First, there's just 3 of us. As some of the other funeral homes, there's more like 50 of them. So when you're talking paying them once a week, that adds up quite a bit, and they need the money to come from somewhere, so it comes from funeral prices. The other thing that I think about when we're talking pricing is their vehicles that they drive. You know, it's outside of the funeral home in the building. Like, what type of funeral vehicle is it? Are they making a removal in the van and then using that van to transport the deceased to the church for the funeral ceremony? Is that van also being utilized as the hearse? To me, those are cost savings for the family if it's just the one vehicle that's being utilized in different roles versus I need a lead car, a limousine, a funeral coach, and a flower car to gather the flowers and run them out to the cemetery. Those are multiple vehicles that you're paying for, several $100s per vehicle that's being utilized. Are they required by law that you use a lead vehicle and a flower car and a limousine? Absolutely not. here in Kokomo, we make a contribution to the EMA for their services to escort us from the place of service to the place of death. They will only stay in the county, so it gets real interesting when we're maybe going into Tipton County or something like that. But I keep those things in mind. Even as we grow here at City of First, I don't want to maybe see things change price-wise where it's maybe not as affordable for a family and they're sacrificing some of the memorialization items that they would want to have for their deceased. So pricing it's not as cut and dry as most people would think. Each funeral home is unique to itself on what its needs are to maintain the facilities and keep it fully staffed while providing great services to the families and the community that they're serving. When I think about price matching as well, I think that's really hard for funeral homes. Like, I think your really busy funeral homes, they may have an opportunity, or bigger funeral homes have an opportunity to price match or price gouge. But I look at things like, if they're matching it now, then why haven't they just set their price at that point? Like, I just, my mind leads into so many questions. And is this something you can negotiate with the funeral home? I've been in the arrangement rooms with families and they ask, like, what kind of discount can I get? Or, oh, come on, you can do better than that on a price. And certain places I worked at, I knew that, yes, I could give a discount, or I was able to knock X amount of dollars off if they were getting a certain casket and vault and services. Other times, it was, no, I'm sorry, it is what it is. I feel that it's better to be more of the, I'm sorry, it is what it is. It's more fair pricing structure across the board to all your families. I think it's interesting when they can price match and gouge, or however you want to look at it, several $1,000s cheaper than what they were originally quoted. Are you going to continue to offer that same price for the next 7 or 8 families that come through and choose the same things? Probably not. So are those families maybe getting the burden of carrying those that were a savvy shopper, maybe, in my opinion, that was willing to ask questions? I think it's important as a consumer, whether it's your first time experiencing a death or it's the 7th time you've been into this funeral home and they've helped you through your family's losses, ask these questions like, oh, I like that urn. Is there another vendor or supplier that offers this urn or similar looking urn to it? You may be surprised. It may take a little bit of digging on the funeral director or funeral home's behalf, but they should be more than willing to help you search out what you're looking for at that right price. So yeah, that's kind of some ideas and thoughts on pricing. I don't think that it could be like a uniformed across the board, doesn't matter what funeral home that you pick. I would hate to see the government step in and say funerals need to be X amount of dollars, cremations need to be X amount of dollars. I think that would get rather interesting. I think it would also get interesting if more corporations absorbed up more of these mom and pop local funeral homes. I think you would see the price of funerals go up even more than what they already are if there was less competition. I feel the mom and pop locations maybe keep the others honest and keep their pricing in a better alignment with what our society and community's in. Pricing as well isn't the same from state to state. It's no different than cost of living. You can go to New York on an Indiana income and you're not going to make it. You're going to be struggling, if not near homelessness. Whereas if you had a New York income to Indiana, you could live pretty well. You could buy a really nice funeral service for somebody. So regionally it changes as well. So it's kind of interesting to see some of these pricing structures. And my time in the funeral homes, I would get an opportunity to maybe look at some of the old records, and it was really interesting to see like funerals from like 1920, 1915, how they kind of itemize things and some of the tasks that the funeral director would perform for the family, and the amount that they were charging for some of them was pretty minimal for what the task was. I know the cost of money has changed, or the value of money has changed over those years, but I felt like things were differently viewed at when we're talking pricing for funeral services. It was, yes, I need to take care of my family and my business. I feel more now that it's getting away from some of that, and it's more for the profit and the benefit of the funeral home. And I know it's a business, I really do, I get that, but I feel our business is so unique. It's more than just a hamburger place. You know, you need to eat to survive, but you can't go into McDonald's or Burger King and boohoo and say that how hungry you are and get your way and probably get a sandwich. But you can probably call the funeral home and explain your situation, that you've had a death and you don't have the funds and you need the help and the resources. The funeral home's going to jump in and say, absolutely, we'll be more than glad to help you. It's important. It really is. And that's that service side of funeral directing that I feel is changing for us. And I see it in the pricing. I see it in the types of services that are selected. Do I feel that maybe cremation's creeping up more because of the pricing of our traditional service? Absolutely. Absolutely. The other part of it, like I've shared in the past, was we're so spread out anymore. So I think that's a good explanation about pricing and why you see such a variance on that. And it may lead to more questions of why you see some of these differences. If you've got more questions, you got any comments or remarks, be sure to leave them on this video. We'll check back on them. You can always give me a call here at the funeral home or stop in. I'd be more than glad to look at or talk to you more about some of those things. Even compare contracts. If you've got contracts and you're trying to say, what's the difference really on these two? I thought I was getting the same services. I'll look at it. Take it to your local funeral home. See if they'll explain it to you. But yeah, that's kind of the structure of pricing for funeral homes. So I've been getting some really interesting pet calls. I've had so many unique experiences with these pet families. Seems like recently we're dealing with some crazy things. I get asked, like, can you tell me how my dog or my cat passed away? And I'm by no means a veterinarian. I'm not able to diagnose what Fluffy died from. There are some things that I've learned over the years of doing funeral service to look for as signs of maybe poisoning, or if they were strangled or abused or things like that. But I've just had some just really unique experiences with these individuals. It's been really sad to kind of see. Lately it's been, and I hate to even tell you listeners and viewers, but it's been people that have dealing with people poisoning their animals, and it's really crazy to kind of say and hear. I've seen what I feel is some pretty prominent evidence in that. Some of these people have cameras, some of them don't. But it's been interesting, and to see some of the care that these animals have been receiving. They've been very well loved. It isn't like a neglected pet that was outside and the neighbor was frustrated because it was barking. It didn't seem like any of that. It just seemed, talking to them, that it was definitely malicious actions because they were jealous of the individuals. So I think it's important that as a pet owner to be observant of your surroundings, whether it's your neighbors or the animals that may be in your area, whether it's hawks, eagles, or coyotes if you live out in the country that may try to pick off your pet. But be very mindful. Be outside when you take your animal out to go to the bathroom, just to kind of see what their behaviors are. You may have let them out late at night and they had a reaction with something that was out there, and they may be a little more skittish or afraid of a certain area of your yard. But yeah, it's been really interesting to kind of see some of these pets that have passed away in the last couple of weeks. It's not been good for pets recently. We've been extremely busy on the pet side, and not all of it's been negative deaths. We've had a lot due to the heat and exposure to fleas and just excessive heat. It's been really crazy. I wanted to share that with you. I know we do pets. I wish I could get into some more detail, but I know if I do, I'll kind of give some clues and things away. But yeah, we serve pets. We get asked some of the craziest stuff about them. We always get paw prints, nose prints, the fur clippings. Fleas have been really bad this year. I don't understand. It's been really crazy. The last year and a half hasn't been so bad for us with the pets, but this year it's been really, really busy. And like I said, we've gone through a couple weeks of some really high temperatures with this exposure. I don't know if that's increasing the the fleas to produce quicker. But it's always important to keep an eye on your pets. Whether they're inside, outside animals, watch out for them. They have no voice of their own other than you protecting them and looking out for them. These pets, they mean the world to us. They know our darkest secrets. They are non-judgmental. They're lovers, and they just never give back any hate. It's nothing but positivity and love. So this does conclude our services for this episode. I'm Jeremy Geiger, and please like, follow, and subscribe to the Kokomo Lanterns. This is the end of Body Bags episode. Thank you. Bye.